Hi, welcome to episode 376 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, which is where this episode and every episode show notes will be. And I have an Etsy shop where I sell my knitting patterns and hand-spun yarns. Hi, how are you? It is Monday, May 2nd. We are on to a new month, and it is quite a gloomy day here just outside Kansas City in Kansas. And like I said, it's a little bit gloomy. The past weekend was windy and sunny and temperatures in the 70s, and now we're not quite going to hit 60 for the next couple days, so we are kind of back indoors. It just looks super gloomy outside, and I think we had a little bit of rain earlier. We could definitely use the rain, and I'm not opposed to gloomy days, although I do like that sunshine, particularly after a long winter. So it being May, it means it's time for Me Made May. For those of you who haven't participated before, the goal of Me Made May is to share your made productions, your made projects, whether it's sewing or knitting or crocheting. It's just to wear all of your lovely garments and wear something you made each day in May. It's May 2nd and I'm on a roll. I'm 2 for 2. I know. I don't know that I'll keep it up all month. Every year I sort of think about it, but this year I decided to try. Yesterday I made sure that I was wearing hand knit socks. And today I am wearing, I joke that it's my not so ripple crop top. It is the pattern, the original pattern is Ripple Crop Top by Jessie Made Designs. I modified mine quite a bit. I added quite a bit of length to the body, and then I shortened the armholes a little bit so that the v-neck did not go quite so low. And this is definitely not me made, but I am wearing my Jenny the Potter ceramic pendant, and it is in a teal or turquoise that goes with the sweater. And so Jenny the Potter made it, but it is art made by a fellow maker. So that is what I'm wearing today, and I am loving it. I am totally in the mood to knit some new tees, and you might see something about that a little bit later on the podcast, because I am getting lots of wear out of the few knit tees that I have. Even over the summer, they are very nice, and they're not too warm. So let's get to the, let's start with the regular material for the podcast today. I am drinking Tea Embassy's Capital Blend. Tea Embassy is located in Washington, D.C. and has tons of lovely teas. The Capital Blend is sort of a plain, it's an Assam, Kenyan, and Ceylon black teas. And so it is just a good pick-me-up for this afternoon. Lots of things have happened in the last couple weeks, and my job, as always, is going through some changes, and so this week proves to be busy. I thought the news that I was going to be telling you was that the company that I work for had been sold to another company, but it turns out that we're not being sold. So now we're still kind of in a waiting game to see precisely how we're going to proceed. And yeah, so that's been keeping me busy. I had thought I was going to be returning to work full-time this summer. And while we are looking to increase our business, so I might be working more, that has kind of totally changed. That was kind of last week's. I learned about that right before I taped the podcast last week, so if I was a little discombobulated, I had just sort of been hit with that. I was expecting to have new bosses today, but that did not happen, and instead we had some meetings on how to grow the business again. So I have lots and lots of to-dos, and so a good strong black tea will get me through the rest of the day. Although actually it's already almost 4 o'clock here, so I don't have too much further to go today, but I have a huge to-do list for the rest of the week now. So I did tons of crafting this week, and I finished not 1, but 2 projects, and then I started some new things, and then I have some more new things to start. So first let's talk about the finishes. My first finish, and I am so pleased that it is done, is the 10-stitch blanket. This is a free pattern on Ravelry by Frankie Brown. It is meant to be knit on US 9 needles with a worsted weight yarn. She is not specific how much yarn or which yarn, just worsted weight on US 9s. I went ahead and dropped to US 8s because I tend to have a little bit of trouble with gauge. Not that there is specific gauge given for this pattern. She used Noro, which I think would be lovely because of the color changes. Mine is a sample knit for Zen Yarn Garden, and so I am using their Nightshade Worsted, which is superwash merino, and it is in their nightshade colorways, which have one strand of black in them. So it is a lovely yarn, and this is what I had left. In all the other colors, I knit to the very, very end of the color. And so all I had left was the little bit I knit until I could not knit another row, until I just had enough to weave in ends. And this is the exact amount I have left over. It is just a couple grams, and I actually managed to end at a corner. As I told you, I wasn't sure precisely where I was going to end, and the reason I have any left over is because when I hit the corner right... Hang on, I'll find it. There are only 4 corners. How many can I go through? When I hit the corner here, I said, aha, I'm binding off. There's no reason to turn the corner because this was probably only a few more rows. So the blanket is, I did a good job. I actually made it square. Go figure. The blanket is approximately 44 inches square, which is a really good lap blanket size. And it is, I knit it in 8 skeins, which is 1,400 yards. So if you used the Zen Yarn Garden base, you would use the 8 skeins if you wanted to for this size, or you could use anything you had in stash. And if you had a little more yardage, you could make it a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller. I knit mine in a perfect square. As the pattern indicates, although you could adapt it to a rectangle. So without further ado, this is the blanket. So as you remember, I started at the center with a purple and yellow, and then I moved outwards to purple and turquoise, and then turquoise and orange, and then orange and red, and then red and blue, and then blue and green, and then green and brown, and then the last colorway was a yellow and brown, and it did not even go all the way around. So that is the blanket. I actually have not blocked it, and to be honest, I'm not sure that I'm going to. I know that's kind of terrible. But it just lays flat in a square, and it is garter stitch, and so I'm a little concerned if I block it, it's just going to grow a ton. So I may give it a quick steam block, but I am not going to full wet block this one because it's going to go off for photos first, and so I don't want to take the chance that it's going to get all stretched out. And 44 inches is really, really nice. Of course, if you wanted it bigger, I'm sure you could block it to bigger because, of course, there is lots and lots of stretch in this, as you can see. I'm able to stretch it quite a bit. But that is done, and I knit that in between 6 and 8 weeks. I'm not precisely sure because I didn't write down when I started it. I went and looked at my first picture, and it's about 6 weeks ago. So I think that's roughly where I am. But it was a lot of yardage to get done. I am pleased to have it finished. And it is going to be packed up later this week and sent to the photographer. And then there will be kits available fairly shortly. So the kits will be available, actually, I take that back. Signups will be available shortly. The kits themselves actually won't start shipping until the fall, because this is the fall blanket knit along for Zen Yarn Garden. So I will be posting some pictures. It's probably this episode's cover photo if I know myself, because I took lots of photos of it today. And it is absolutely just squishy and lovely, and I cannot recommend a more lovely project. So that is one sample finished. The second sample that I finished this week, and I actually was not sure that I was going to make it, but it is another sample that I'm knitting for Zen Yarn Garden, and it is in these 8 colors, plus a whole bunch of other color combinations and speckles. And what I was doing with all of these colors, there are 24 in total, was I was knitting them up into little swatches so that they can be taken to H&H Americas this summer and be sold as a new color collection to retail clients. And after I was done knitting up all the little all the little swatches, then we decided to turn them into a shawl so that you could see kind of how all the swatches would work together and all the colors will kind of interplay. So what we did was we took Casapinka's The Perfect Blend Shawl, which was a mystery knit along that was written for either 4 colors of fingering weight or a mini skein gradient set. She used, I believe, a Miss Babs gradient set, and those are a little bit heftier in size than a lot of gradients. And it called for 12 gradients of approximately, I think, about 100 yards. What I had was 24 colors of 75 to 80 yards by the time I got done knitting the swatches, so I went ahead and created the shawl. The shawl itself is basically an asymmetrical triangle. It starts at a point and grows, and it is sort of a sampler stitch because it's got a whole variety of stitches. And so I showed you last week a lot of the beginning because, of course, the beginning was very small sections and worked up quickly. There are a million ends on this shawl. They are all woven in. I finished weaving them in this morning. The deal is that I always wait until I wash and block the shawl to clip the ends, and that is because when I weave in my ends, sometimes when I stretch the shawl to block, those ends pop out and then I have to go back and trim them again. So I usually weave them in and I wait and I stretch it out in blocking, and then right before I pack it up, I just run the scissors across the back of the shawl and pull all the ends. So there are a million, but if you see them, they are woven in, and all I need to do after this is I'm going to block right after I finish speaking to you, and then this box is going to go out later this week, and I'm going to be so thrilled that all of this is out of my hands and onto the photographer and the next steps. So I started here up in the corner with some very kind of harvesty colors, oranges, reds, yellows, a little bit of blue and some purple. And then I moved through the colors as they mixed and matched. There's a little bit of back and forth. And then I got down, yeah, you can see more oranges and yellows. And then I kind of got into greens and blues and yellows and purples. And then I sort of finished around the reds. And then I worked through the 7 colors that you just saw in the blanket. So this time I started in a slightly different order. This was a multicolor that had red and blue and turquoise in it, but then I had my red and blue and my red and orange and my orange and turquoise and my turquoise and purple and my purple and yellow and my yellow and brown and my green and brown and my blue and green. And as you can see, like I said, this is kind of a sampler shawl. The first sections are very much in stockinette, but then we've got a section with some kind of smocked stitching. I hope you can see this. My monitor's kind of blowing it out. We have kind of a lace and rib section. We have a slip stitch section where you're slipping some floats in front. We have a kind of cross cables where you cross your cables over and it creates this sort of crosshatch look. This is almost like what I was doing in the crosshatch wrap. This is some cables and ribbing, and then in the finishing sections we've got again some slip stitches in interesting patterns, some garter. That was pretty much garter. We have kind of a little bit of an eyelet section, some more garter, and then the last few sections are some sort of feather and fan, so it gives the edge a scalloped edge. And of course this is not blocked. I literally just finished this at midnight last night, so it is a bright rainbow shawl. It is not for the faint of heart, but it is lovely, and it is already quite large, and I'm sure that it will block out more. I do not know exactly how much yardage I used. Like I said, it calls for between 12 and 1600. I don't know precisely how much I used. I also mixed and matched a little bit, which was a little bit to my detriment. The shawl comes, excuse me, let me take a sip of tea. The shawl comes in 2 sizes, small and large, and at a certain point you diverge. And I knit the small size because I had used part of my skeins already for swatches. If you purchase the kit for this, you should be able to knit the large size because you will have enough yardage in those skeins. I just ran short on a few skeins because I had already made something from the skeins, so I didn't have the full 25 grams and 100 yards. So for instance, this section I split between 2 colors so that I would have enough. and I split the ending section, not just so I would have enough, but also so I could get all the colors in. But you could certainly knit it in fewer colors, and I can't remember what I was going to, oh, I know what I was going to say. In this section, I actually knit the large chart, even though I was knitting the small size shawl, and I did that because I wanted to make sure that somehow I miscounted, and I wanted to make sure that I got all 24 colors in the shawl, which I did, but I knit the large chart on the rest of the small, so then my stitch counts were off, so then I don't think things lined up quite right in my final section, which I only realized as I was knitting it. So, don't mix and match is my suggestion. But you could knit this in any number of colors. You could also knit it in leftovers in your stash. To be honest, I'm a little sorry that I didn't have the speckles for everything, because I thought it was actually a really nice break between the solid colors and the speckles. You also could reverse, and you could do the solid color, or the variegated colors rather than the speckles in the in-between sections. I was just afraid the pattern wouldn't show up in the highly variegated yarns, so I was just sort of trying to play with it. So that is my sampler shawl. Again, it's Casa Pinka. I believe the shawl calls for a size 6. I used a size 5. That is just consistent with my going down one size. I will weigh it and put the finished measurements on my Ravelry project page. As a reminder, I generally don't use Ravelry to track my projects anymore. However, if I am knitting samples, I do, because part of the process of creating the sample is such that anyone who buys a kit can recreate it. So there will be detailed notes on exactly how much yarn I used and exactly which colors I used where on my Ravelry page. If you check my Ravelry page, if you are still able to use Ravelry, the only thing that is there now is sample knits that I do for other companies. So any project that I show you that I say is a sample, you will find notes for it on Ravelry. If Ravelry is not safe for you to use, please just go ahead and email me, message me on YouTube somewhere, well, obviously not Ravelry, YouTube, Instagram, at my website, thecornerofknitandtea.com, or my email, which is also thecornerofknitandtea@gmail.com, and I would be happy to share the details with you anytime. But I do put my notes on Ravelry because that is the easiest place to make them available for everyone. So those are the two projects that I finished. I thought I would share with you a couple other things that I started this week, and most of these are small projects. The first is I am working on a new chicken collection. We actually debuted a chicken collection about a week and a half ago. There were some photos on my Instagram. I did not participate in that collection. In that one, they invited artists from around the world to contribute. So I watched and was supportive, and I went to the gallery opening and cheered them on, and they are all sold, which is amazing. But I didn't have any chickens in that flock. The next flock we're working on is going to be a little more garden inspired, and so this week I am working on greens. So this is 3 or 4 different greens, and I have knitted it up into nubbly garter stitch, and then I also have some of the loopy stuff to do later. But I thought I would show you that, you know, just in time for spring and flowers and everything to be greening up and blooming, this week's chicken is some green. So, 2 other small things that I started this week. The first was I went out on Saturday and ran a whole bunch of errands with my husband, or I should say he ran a whole bunch of errands and I kind of tagged along. We did grab some food for lunch, but he had to go to Home Depot and a couple other places, and I was still working on finishing the blanket, and I was working on, well, I guess I finished the blanket on Friday. I was working on finishing the Casa Pinka shawl, and I did not want to take the charts with me, and I needed a new roundy project to work on. So I cast on a sock. And I decided to cast on a sock for my niece. Roxy will be 9 this fall, so I decided to cast on a sock for her, and I just pulled some sock yarn out of stash. My main goal was not to have to wind a ball of yarn because we were getting into the car fairly quickly, and so this is Shawl and Shawl Fortissima Mexico. This was yarn that I bought a really long time ago, I think from the Sock Yarn Shop, which is actually it is called the Sock Yarn Shop, and it is a small business in the UK, and I sort of connected with the owner of the business on either Instagram or Ravelry way back in 2011, and we chatted about a few things, and I sort of check out her shop for updates, but I just buy a lot of German sock yarn from her because that's a lot of what she carries. She has West Yorkshire spinners, she has Regia, she has a bunch of other things, and I think this came from her. It has been years and years and years though, so I don't know if you can still find it. But this was what I thought was a ball of self-striping sock yarn. And it's just pinks and blues and purples. And I had pulled it out actually to start a pair of socks for myself, but then I decided, you know what, the kids are going to need socks later this year. I can knit them now, I can knit them a little big, and then I won't be gnashing my teeth at the very last minute. So I cast on a simple vanilla sock for Roxy. And one of the fun things about sock yarn is sometimes you don't quite know what you're going to get. And in this case, I did not get stripes. What I got was sort of a gradient fade. So this is the sock that I cast on for Roxy, and I'm at a little bit of an awkward point to show you. I just finished the heel turn, and so I am ready to do the foot. I did make these kind of short, so they're not going to be super tall socks, but yeah, it just fades through the pink, through the purples to the blues, and then back out to the pinks. I actually brought in from the other side of the ball to do the heel. That's a trick that I learned because it doesn't, that way you don't disturb the striping on the top of the foot, and I thought it would be really nice to have the gradient go all the way through on the foot, and then even if the heel were a little bit different, it wouldn't matter that much. But when it turned out when I pulled it in, it just started at the purple, so I actually got like really kind of a nice, this is a little bit of what it's going to look like overall. So usually once I finish the heel turn, I think of myself as halfway done. I'm probably a third of the way done because I will need to knit a decent sized foot for her. But I was really pleased that I packed this in the car because I literally knit all of this in about 2 hours when I was sitting in the car while my husband was running errands. And otherwise I would have just sat in the car and played games on my phone. And I would much rather be a little bit productive with it. So I don't know when you'll see these again. Again, this is just going to be my take it in the car, my I need a roundy project, just when I can't concentrate or don't want to take a pattern with me, because this is a pretty vanilla sock. I believe I am knitting a 52 stitch sock on size US 1s. And last time I think her foot was 7 3/4, so I will probably knit to 8 or 8 1/4, or at least I will knit to fit a size 8 to 8 1/4. And I will be seeing the kids in another couple months, and so I may generally what I have them do is I have them stand on a piece of printer paper and I trace their feet, and they think it is the bee's knees. They think it's hysterical. And then I take it home with me, and then I have their foot for the year. And normally I would ask my sister to just do it for me, but she sometimes forgets, so it's just easiest to do it when I'm there. And then I have the length and the width of their foot, and it's not quite as detailed as a full 3D model, but it gives me enough of what I need to knit them socks. So that is the first set of socks in progress. I usually try and knit 2 or 3 new pairs of socks for the kids each fall or as part of their Christmas gift. So that I thought I would get a head start on that and just work on those in my free time, because again, if I'm knitting things with heavy patterns, it's really hard to take it with me in the car, and I don't spend as much time in the car as I used to. We used to do lots of errand days and driving to see friends and whatnot, and we don't do that as much anymore. We also haven't taken any major car trips in a while. I guess our last one was Thanksgiving, but we used to be in the car a lot more, and so I'd get a lot more car knitting done. So I just want to get back into having projects on the go so that I can pick them up and use and work on them if I just have a few minutes. The next thing I picked up this week is I had an itch to do a hat. I think the deal is that last month I worked really seriously on the blanket and on that sweater for myself. The Casapinka shawl actually only took me about 2 weeks, so I can't say that I was working on it forever, but I think I was just frustrated that I had no real finishes. I guess technically I finished the blanket in April. Technically the Casapinka shawl was finished on May 1st, but I was really frustrated that I had no real output for last month because I was working on longer projects, because I also have a back of a sweater for me, but it still needs 2 fronts, so I still have just as much knitting to do before that sweater is wearable. So I decided to also start on a new hat. This one, I haven't quite decided exactly where this hat will go. It is actually all wool, so technically it could go to Wool Aid. It also could go to It also could go to the hat charity that I knit for in the fall. And this is, I literally pulled out several more bags of scraps that had been in a bin at the bottom of my closet and started pulling things out to make use of them. This is, I'm not sure what this is. It is either Madeline Tosh or it is some leftover Zen Yarn Garden in a gray. And the only reason I think it might be Madeline Tosh is because it was in a different bag from further back, and so I'm not really sure that it was a Zen Yarn Garden, but I don't know. And then I had leftovers of these two skeins. These are Monostil Uruguay Allegria, and I knit myself a cowl out of the worsted weight. I knit myself a Karina Spencer cowl, and I had that left over. And then I had this one, which is, I think this might be Valley Yarns Northampton from a sweater I did a while back, but it could be something different. It could be a brown sheep prairie spun DK. Actually, that's what it feels like now that I think about it. So I had these colors and I thought they would be a fun hat together. So, and I chose a little bit poorly, but all three of these together add up to just around 100 grams. So I thought this would be perfect for a kid's hat, and I cast on, and I am not super far in. I did the ribbing and then I got started in the mane. What I thought I would do in the mane was alternate the pink and the variegated. At the bottom I used the gray, and my thought was when I get done, my suspicion is that I'll have a little bit of this one left over and a little bit of the gray left over, and so my thought was then I could do a pom-pom in those two colors for the top. And that would get rid of all of these little balls of yarn and create a hat that a kid would love. So again, I don't know whether it will go to Wool Aid or it will go to the charity I donate hats to in Oklahoma in the fall. Normally, I would say with all these different scraps and stuff, I would probably send it to the charity in Oklahoma. My only concern is that this one might not be superwash, in which case, I don't know. I feel like a lot of those are going to end up in the washer dryer, whereas some of the ones for Wool Aid, they may just be washing them by hand. So I don't know, but I'm going to persevere, and I do really like the way this is knitting up. I do feel like the pink is overpowering the other just a little bit, but because I don't have enough of any one color to really make it all work, I just thought I would, you know, combine my leftovers and see what I come up with. So that might be done by next week. We'll see. Again, there's no time limit on it. It's just kind of I wanted to knit more from my stash. So, two other things that I pulled out from my stash, and then one thing that I did not pull out. I pulled out another skein of handspun. This was in my shop years ago. I actually pulled it out a while ago because it had been sitting for a while. It is one of my old ones. It is called Heart of Winter. It was a Hello Yarn Romney, which means it's a little bit crunchy. I might, if I turn this into a hat, I might actually knit a liner for it because it's a little bit rough, and that was kind of why I was so on it. But to me, it looks like stone fruits. It's really pretty. I love the colors. It's just that it's not as soft as it could be. And it sat in the shop for a while, and I finally decided to just pull it out, and I am going to turn it into a wool hat for someone. So I haven't decided on a hat pattern. It's just kind of my May charity hat, even though I already have one other one. I put together a whole, I have all of these packing cubes, not packing cubes. I have one of those IKEA Expedits, and I also have well, it's not the Expedit anymore. Is it? It's something different. The IKEA bookshelf with all the square holes, and you could get the bins to fit in those, and I have tons of those bins. So this year, at the beginning of the year, when I decided I wanted to use more of my handspun and I unearthed a bunch of other bags of leftovers, I put everything into one of those square cubes to pull from to knit hats from this year. So as the year goes on, I keep pulling things out. That's where a lot of my handspun has come from when I've knit handspun hats. That's where this came from. That's where those extra skeins came from. I just, when I'm in the mood to knit a hat or to do kind of a quick instant gratification project, I run over there and grab it and knit. A friend left a comment on my last video asking me if I know where to donate some fingering weight items made out of handspun. She said she doesn't really have a lot of worsted weight, but she has a lot of fingering weight. I do not know where takes wool items, like all wool items that are knit out of handspun. The only thing I could suggest is you could double up. So if you have a skein of fingering weight, you could wind it into a center pull ball and knit it holding the strands together, and then just knit yourself a worsted weight hat. In general, a lot of the real donations for people who are cold, they want you know, thicker stuff because it keeps people warmer. So in general, I usually just knit for charities to do that. You could think of some other things if you wanted to knit like for shawl ministries, if there's anything like that in your local town. I mean, you could turn a skein of fingering handspun into a lovely shawl to drape over someone's shoulders. You could see if any of the residential facilities are taking donations of that sort. The only problem there is getting things cared for, but you know, if it's a shawl, it may not get that dirty. I'm trying to think what else you could do with fingering weight as kind of a donation. I mean, there are lots of places that will take donations. And if you really just want to knit for charity and get it out there, and you can sort of move away from worrying about how it's cared for, you also could check and see, like we have several homeless shelters that will take donations. There is a domestic violence shelter here in Kansas City that has taken my donations before. And so a lot of times what I will do is I will make an item and then I will put it in a Ziploc bag or some other bag, and I will put a little card in the bag that says the fiber that's in there and how it should best be taken care of. That way, if anybody has any allergies, they can skip it. And if anybody needs something warm and then just needs a little something to, just a little thing that says, you know, hand wash or machine wash, and then the other thing you can do is if you want them to hand wash it, sometimes I will stick, Eucalan makes single-use pods, or sometimes when you go to conventions, you get little handouts of little single-use wool wash. Sometimes I'll even throw those in there as a, you know, here, use this. So, and then I usually just seal those up in a Ziploc bag and put them all in a big box, a big cardboard box, and take them to donate them. And actually the last time I took stuff to the domestic violence shelter, they told me people were going to fight over them. So, which was not really my intent, but I had a whole box full of sweaters and scarves and hats and various things. The other thing I'll do sometimes is if I have leftover dishcloth cotton, I'll knit a bunch of washcloths and stick them in there with a bar of soap, because, you know, you think about people going to shelters sometimes for food or for clothing, but a lot of times you don't think about the fact that, like, if they can wash their face, or if they can brush their teeth, or if you can donate leftover shampoos that you've taken from hotels, things like that. Like, toiletries are very expensive in the like if you're going in the supermarket buying toothbrush and toothpaste and shampoo and deodorant and all of those things are really expensive, and if you throw a few of those kits into boxes with things that you're donating, sometimes they will be of help. So sometimes I found a whole stash of cotton yarn in my closet that I think somebody else gave to me. I think I needed to knit like a washcloth, and she gave me her whole bag of dishcloth cotton and was like, here, you can have it. So I thought I need to have like a washcloth knitting month this year so that I can knit a bunch of washcloths and then put a bunch of toiletry kits together. So those are my ideas on charity knitting. I have done some of them, not all of them. Your mileage may vary. You can check with resources near you, and good luck, because if you have things and if you have supplies and the time and want to make the donation, I think it is a lovely donation to make. So, two other things that are getting close to being cast on. I have been in the mood to knit everything for myself. I know I have a sweater in progress that I need to go back to. I really have no business casting on anything else, and I want a really quick win. I need something to like power through so that I can get started on some bigger projects. So, earlier this year, I apologize for the crackling. Earlier this year, I was sent a bag, and I was sent this bag for free. I was sent a bag of Knit Pal Cotton to the Core, and this is a roughly DK weight cotton yarn. It is 78% cotton, 22% acrylic. Each skein is 50 grams, 142 yards. It is available on Amazon, which is not always where I buy my craft supplies, but she sells on Amazon, and she actually has quite a robust business. But she sells these in packages of 6, which comes out to about 850 yards. And when I did knit one skein. This is the skein I knit and frogged, and the deal is that I knit it into a swatch because I was curious what it would knit up like, and she sent me the bag for review and for my feedback, and so I knit a swatch, and I actually really liked it, and I liked it so much that I pulled the swatch out because I decided I had 850 yards, and that was totally enough to knit a cotton weight top, a little summer tee. So I think one of my cast-ons this week is going to be a little summer tee that I hope to crank out very, very quickly, just because it would be lovely to wear and because I would love to get something out of my stash and have a little something else. It is just this pale blue colorway. It is kind of a little bit denim-y, and it's got some real nice variation. I don't know if you can see that. And I just thought I would give it a try because cotton and acrylic and easy care, this is definitely machine washable. It says do not tumble dry. I would probably dry it on low. I may. It could shrink a little bit because it has cotton. But so my thought was I'm going to knit a little tee out of this and see how I like it. So I think I have even selected a tee. There's a free pattern from Barocco. It was meant to be knit in one of their cotton yarns, but of course I'll just knit it in mine. So that's the first thing. And then the second thing is, it is time to knit the children's sweaters. I know it is only May 1st. The children's birthdays are at the end of October, but I need to knit 2 people-sized sweaters because they are growing into people. When they were children, and they are technically still children, when they were 2 and 3 and 4, it was very easy to whip out a sweater for them. Now that they are going to be 9 and 6, it is a little bit more work, particularly the 9-year-old. So I have picked 2 sweater patterns. I ordered yarn in an extravaganza a couple weekends ago, and so my hope is that I'm going to get that cast on this week for Roxy. I know I have a million things going on. I don't know how many of them I'll get to, but that should be new projects for this month. And then I also know that I will have one more sample. I have yarn for a shawl, and I just need the my client to pick the final pattern. She sent me a whole bunch of patterns and said, I'm sending you yarn, this is what I'd like to do, and so I need to find out which pattern she decided on and make sure I have the correct yarn lined up for it, and then I will have another sample on the needles. So I have lots that I'm working on with a variety of yarns. I know I tend heavy towards Zen Yarn Garden. That's because I work for them quite a bit, but I'm pleased to be using this cotton. I believe the whole bag of cotton was something like $25 or $30. I will have to double check on Amazon, but it is really, really super affordable for a tee, and I will have to see how I like it and how it wears, but I have no reason to think that I won't. So that is all of the knitting content. I'm going to take a quick sip of tea. Spinning content is late this week, but I will show you what I've got, and then I'll get you on out and back to your day. So this past week I spun one of the fibers that I got at Plyaway last weekend. So the first bump is already almost out of the stash, right? It was a beautiful green and blue kind of water-themed bump, and you can see right here, this is kind of almost the gradient. It's got lots of green, turquoise, and some purples in it, and that half I spun straight through, and then the other half I tore into 2 pieces and spun it straight through twice. So this should give me the fractal spin that I'm looking for, and I think I might ply these tonight. I don't know. Basically tonight I want to, I need to block the shawl, and then I need to weave in the ends on all my samples, and I need to do more chicken knitting, and so I don't know if I'm going to get to these tonight, but if not, this will be tomorrow night's project, and so I will have this to show you later in the week. I did ply up the last spin, and I finally took it off the bobbins, and it's lovely. I still need to wash it. I think I'm going to keep it for myself, at least for now. And that means this week I'm actually going back to a previous spin that I had started. If you remember, a couple weeks ago, I started this spin from Knitty and Color. It is a purpley hot, it's some neon pink and a bit of purple, and then it's all overwashed in, or overdyed in black. So it is a dark and moody colorway with a few little bits and bobs. I am spinning it straight through. I have the first half on the wheel, and this is the second half. To be honest, I absolutely love her fiber. Her fiber prep is immaculate. Her colors are amazing. She posted a whole bunch of new stuff last night, and if I weren't on a no-buy for a couple months because I just was very bad at Plyaway, I would be partaking. My only complaint about this is black dye just, it has a lot of exhaust, and so the black dye keeps coming off on my hands, and that is why I keep not working on this. But I really would like to finish the spin, and I will say that after I spin it up and wash it, it is not likely to come off on your hands in the knitting of it, and what's coming off on my hands is just excess dye and a little bit of exhaust. It actually will not come off when you knit and wear the garment. So, I mean, you don't have to worry about getting stained black. This is just something that happens with some colors. You often find it with reds, you sometimes find it with blues, and black is just, it's a heavy pigment, and for some reason there's always, when you're trying to dye a real good dark black, sometimes there's just extra dye pigment in there, and I'm just picky because I don't like my fingers to turn colors. It's fine. As soon as I go into the bathroom, I don't even really need soap. Like, it literally just washes off. But it just has kept me from spinning on this. But I need to finish this one. So this is what I'm going to work on this week and hopefully have that to show you next week. So that was a lot of yammer about just a few projects. I hope that you are enjoying a lovely week, that spring is flourishing wherever you are, that you are surviving storms. There were tornadoes in other parts of Kansas this week. And so I hope that you are surviving acts of nature and viruses and whatever else may be, and that you are finding some peace or some motivation, creativity, enhanced inspiration in your crafting. I'm kind of on an upswing now that I've finished some things, and I'm excited to start some new things, and hopefully I can crank out a few smaller things this month just to give myself a sense of progress. I am very much a product knitter, and so while I don't think that my progress was shoddy this past month, I do like having a couple finishes along the way to just keep motivating me to keep going. So I am excited about that, and I'm excited about all I want to create this summer. So I hope that you are well, and I will say, as I always do, until I see you again, happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye.